Perfect.
We'll just clip that out in the VOD and it'll be fine. So this is the real start of the stream. Hello everybody.
Yes. Hi.
We'll just pretend it started here. How are y'all doing? So we finally know Project Luminous.
Yeah, and who would have imagined a Star Wars themed light bulb company?
Right, yeah, I'm so excited for these light bulbs. I'm really excited to have like my face just look like the Death Star.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be great. It's going to really change the lighting in the channel. I know you really want the one that just makes like I think there's like a Dex's Diner set.
Yeah. And it is a shame that Samuel L. Jackson gets the only purple one, but
Yeah, you know, it is, but it's understandable. But no, so yeah, Project Luminous, High Republic. So the rumors were true for once that we were getting the High Republic, which I'm certainly excited about. I think it's like one of my favorite time periods in Legends is the Old Republic. And I know fans for a long time have wanted the Old Republic. I still don't think we're gonna get the Old Republic such as we knew it ever. But we might get something similar. But this is kind of like that good blend of they don't have to actually shut down the game, SWOTOR, which is like the one last holdout of Legends canon, but they can still kind of tell their own time period. I think that's good. It's actually set even another 100 years before when Bane took place. I think this is kind of in the Knight Errant time period if you compare it to Legends. But I'm excited. How are you feeling about the time period, about the setup?
I'm really excited. I think 200 years before the prequels, I think is enough that it's a very different time, but I think it's kind of a good in between.
Yeah.
The whole idea of it is to get a glimpse of the Jedi at their peak.
Right.
Because when we see them in the Old Republic, they're struggling in wars against the Mandalorians and wars against the Sith.
Yep.
And by the time we see them in the Star Wars saga, it's war against the Sith again and then the Separatists. And this is seeing Jedi at their height, at the height of their power.
Yep.
And I love that idea, and I love that it's going to let us see the same order that we know.
Yep.
But without the context of them being clouded by dark side, or without the context of their order being decimated by galactic events.
Right.
No, and give us like what we know, but in a different setting, new and different at the same time that it's old and familiar.
I thought the Bane books were 100 years and not 1,000 before the movies. I could be misremembering, but I could have sworn they were only 100. It's 100 or it's 1,000. There's a zero or there or not there. I can't remember which one. But anyway, I'm with you. I like to see the Jedi at the height of their power, and I'm really excited to see some of the stuff that we've kind of been talking about in some of our streams, where they take place. Oh, okay. Well, then I just forgot a zero. Thank you for the correction. I knew it was a number like that. I mean, 100, 1,000. That's basically the same year. Who needs zeros, But something. 100 years was. I'm just gonna get stuck. There was something else that's 100 years. Anyway, doesn't matter. But now I'm just losing my train of thought. But I'm excited because we keep talking about how I've said for a while that I think the Jedi were the die was cast for them when Palpatine took power, and that everything that happened in the Clone Wars, there was no right or wrong decision they could make. And there was a lot of discussion after Master and Apprentice came out about whether or not Jedi should have gotten involved with ending slavery in the galaxy. A lot of discussion with Dooku Jedi Lost. Conveniently, both High Republic authors, Claudia Gray and Kevin Scott, about Dooku was politically active and the coming of the Clone Wars and that sort of thing. What I'm kind of hoping we get as we see the Jedi at their height, we're also seeing they were described in that video as kind of like frontiersmen Jedi, Texas Ranger kind of thing. And it looks like the galaxy is going to be significantly less developed than it is
Mm-hmm.
as we've seen it. I kind of want to see the Jedi go out to these other planets, and I want to see them. There you go. Port Haven was funded approximately 100 years before the prequels. Thank you. That's canon now. But I kind of want.
2011 was 100 years before the prequels.
But I kind of want to see the Jedi go out and try to stop all these things and like actually get involved and completely muck it up.
Right.
Which isn't to say that the Jedi shouldn't have necessarily gotten involved, but I would love to see explanations for like. And when I say explanations, I don't necessarily mean justification, but explanation for why the Jedi is the way it is in the prequel trilogy. You know, why do we see these elaborate outfits in the concept art for High Republic, and then they're wearing the brown robes? And even, I think it's in Jedi Lost, there's a passage about how the Jedi wear less fancy stuff. I can't remember what exact source it was in. And see, like, how do they go to that? And see, like, oh, you know, the reason why Yoda is like, we can't get all up in everybody's business in Master and Apprentice is because Yoda was around when the Jedi got all up in everybody's business, and it didn't go well. And I would love to see that kind of like, why did the Jedi marry themselves to bureaucracy, really? And again, like I said, I'm not saying that's because it's the right thing for the Jedi to do. I don't think it was, but I want to see that journey of like, why did it happen that way?
Right. Oh, Bob Iger stepped down as CEO of Disney
Is
apparently.
that true? What? Holy crap! I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look at that. I believe you, but that's wild.
While you look that up, I'll say another one of my favorite things about this announcement is that like we're gonna get an element of like high fantasy in Star Wars too.
Right.
Like that's like I've always been a fantasy reader. Like I love sci-fi too, and you know Star Wars has always bridged that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I like that we're getting, you know, like they were explicit, like this is gonna like cast the Jedi as like the Knights of the Round Table,
Right.
um, and like have them, you know, in a different, like it's the same order but in a different role than what we think of them as, like more wizards than space wizards,
Right.
and and I don't know, I really like that. I like high fantasy as a genre, and I think it's an interesting challenge for this group of writers too, because you know Kevin's background is more in like horror, like that's where his interests are,
Mm-hmm.
and Claudia comes from, you know, like a YA romance kind of thing,
Right.
and I don't know, I'm excited to get a different take. And it reminds me, you know, I posted this on Twitter earlier, because like the aesthetic of it reminds me of the Myths and Fables,
Mm-hmm.
um, look, to that book, but also like a lot of the like the way that the Jedi were portrayed in Myths and Fables was
Right.
as like
Oh yeah.
knights, like
Mm-hmm.
night knights, not like just Jedi knights.
Right.
And I don't know, it's an interesting connection to me, and I wonder if it's intentional that way, or you know, I'm sure it wasn't overlooked that it would be
Right.
that way, even if it wasn't
The
the
way to.
point.
No, I'm
But
with you there.
I mean, especially because like the whole idea for so long was that the Jedi were samurai, right?
Right.
And that's a different type of, you know, medieval tradition. And I like just seeing again what we know in a slightly different context that
Yeah,
allows different types of stories.
I agree. Real quick, just to go off of what Cal said, I saw one source that said Iger named a different CEO, but he's staying on as chairman.
Mhm.
But that's one source. So, but that's an entirely different stream for an entirely different day. That would be. I'm sure that's going to be wild. Whatever happens, I'm sure somebody will blame Kathleen Kennedy for it.
Benju
But
says, I also love the image that we got of the dude with the curved hilt
yeah,
lightsaber. There was a lot of those lightsaber designs that I really
I
liked.
like the one on the one concept art that has the Loth Wolf, and everybody was freaking out,
Yep.
understandably, because of the Loth Wolf. But if you look at the lady behind the wolf, she's got like two blades going the same direction, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a really cool look. It looked like it almost could be one of the snap sabers, but she just has both sides
All
ignited at
right.
once. That would be
I
really
like
cool.
the one that was right beside her
Mm-hmm.
that had like they're not like cross guards, but they're like little like pieces that stick up,
Mm-hmm.
like ornate. kind of things. But no, I liked a lot of those
Yeah.
looks, and and this is it's like a high fashion version of the Jedi, right? Too.
Yeah.
So it's the High Republic, it's high fantasy, and it's high fashion.
Yup.
Um,
I
the Wookiee Jedi looks cool too.
yeah,
Uh,
I like how many of them have cross guards, just because I remember back to the 2015 arguments about Kylo's saber,
right.
and how people thought it was dumb. So that just kind of made me laugh. But no, like, going off of what you're saying, I am excited to see that kind of more mythical feel of the Jedi, and I think it could be something interesting too if, like, I'm very curious to see if this is really like the first golden age of the Republic. Because if you go back to Legends, there's several golden ages of the Republic before we get to the one that we see in the prequel trilogy.
Right.
And I like the idea of, like, we could really be seeing, like, it could be a much shorter history. And even like an ancient Jedi Order could just be something that was a smaller organization. Like, if we're really kind of coming into, because like the birth of hyperspace in Legends happened during the Tales of the Jedi comics, which predate KOTOR. That's true, Jedi fangirl. It's not the first Wookiee Jedi, but is a very cool Wookiee Jedi. We have Gunji from who's the first canon one from the Younglings arc, and then there was Lobaka and the I can't remember if the Wookiee Jedi in the Invasion comic was Lobaka or if it was a separate Wookiee Jedi, but there was one in the Invasion comic too. But
I looked it up for reference, and Star Wars Explained posted last night that the Wookiee
oh no, I
is
lost.
buried.
There we go. Say that again. Sorry,
Can I hear?
my internet. You're here. My internet took a hit.
Okay.
Say that again.
The Jedi's Wookiee's name is Buri Yaga Agathuri.
Yeah, I think Charles Soule. Oh, it was Lobaka and Invasion. Thank you, Cal. But yeah, he posted that in the name of the Jedi and the cover of his book, which is also the background. I should say, as a quick shout out, our welcome screen and our background was made for us again by our friend Skynobi, who is really awesome. And sometimes it's just like, hey, I made you guys a background, and I'm like, thanks. So again, I put his channel link in the description. You guys should go check him out and show him some love. Solo Pirate Welcome says all the new stuff is great, but is making your head hurt. Well, I mean, there's so much of it.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
I'll say too, one of the things that I like a lot about all of this, I mean, because I know that there are two comic lines involved from two different publishers, which I think is exciting.
Yeah.
But I like how much time they have put in to like already having a visual dictionary for this world.
Yeah.
Even though most of the content is going to be prose.
Yep.
I like that we have visuals to go off of that kind of tell us, even just in the concept art, like what this world is like. Because they even did concept art for like regular people, right? So, like, we have a way of thinking about what this world looks and feels like, even though, like, especially the first book we're going to get is not a comic, right? So it's all prose, but like we know what a suit of armor looks like we know, like even if you read a story about knights, like what that aesthetic feels like. Or if you read a story about samurai, like the first time you sit down to play a D&D game, like you understand what a medieval wizard is, and I feel like this gives you kind of a style guide to think about and visualize.
No, I
like
think that's
what's
cool
going
too.
on.
Well, and like Sin just said, this world seems better organized compared to the NJO. And like, I feel like the NJO did a really good job for what it was in its time. Like, I agree with what Sin said, but I don't know, like, I wouldn't, and I'm not saying she's trying to either, but like, I'm not saying shade the NGO. But like, the very brief understanding we've had with talking to the authors is it kind of felt like the authors writing books close to each other kind of talked, but it wasn't really like the whole series was super spelled out. At least it doesn't feel that way, where this really feels like, these 5 authors came together and have really been talking about it. And then even then it's described as phase 1. And so I think that right now most of what we're seeing is prose, but there's also rumors that High Republic was going to be a video game, and it still could. That if EA ever gets around to making more than a video game every other year, if it feels like it, that we could have like a High Republic video game take place, or even like I could see one of the animated series being this way. and not in this phase 1. I think this phase 1 is the 5 projects we got, but I think if this is successful and fans really take to it, that it really could expand to being something larger than Prose, especially because something like a game or a TV show would take longer development because there's more people involved. So like they'd want to get going on that now.
Well, and we already know that there are 5 other licenses, and I don't recognize all of them, that have already been like worked into whatever the next phase of this is going to be.
Right.
So I mean, like we've already got Marvel and IDW, but like Titan's going to be involved.
Yeah,
and, like
there's
there are a
another
couple of other
comic company.
publishing houses that are all going to be involved. I mean, and of the 5 things that are confirmed, that's 4 different publishers that are making them.
Right.
Because we have 1 Del Rey book, 2 Lucasfilm Press books,
Yep,
and then a Marvel series and an IDW series. And
yep.
And it like you have to have a level of collaboration to make that work.
Yep.
And like you don't have, I don't want to say central planning because that has context, but if you don't have sort of a core cohesive like story group or something going on there, then it doesn't work. And I like that they have that again from the start.
Yeah, no, I like seeing that. I like seeing it, and I kind of wonder how, like, and this is something that they may never announce. This may be something we could ask one of our friends, but I'm really curious how these 5 got picked, because I think such an importance to it is the 5 of them have to really like working together, because presumably it's all like, we don't know, but whatever phase 2 is, hopefully the same people would be involved. But it also feels like some of the stuff I was seeing online is just the concept of doing a project like this was in talks before Force Awakens even came out. But at that point, a lot of these authors, in fact, all of these authors weren't writing for Star Wars yet. So, like, the idea of wanting to do something like this, but then having to pick their team, and, like, why what was it about Kevin and Claudia and Charles and Justina and Daniel where they were like, not only these 5, because obviously, like, all 5 of them have written for Star Wars and have written good stuff for Star Wars, but like, why these 5? Like, not why each of them individually, because each of them qualifies. Like, each of them's more than talented enough to do it. But like, to say, no, these are going to be 5 people who can work together and work with us, I think is an important element.
Well, and I think one of the things that I like about this is, even though I thought when Project Luminous was first announced that it was going to be, FACPOV, but for Empire, and it's not that.
Which I'm bummed that it doesn't look like we're getting FACPOV for Empire.
Yeah, me too, because I think it was such a good project.
Yep.
All of this doesn't happen without FACPOV, though.
Right.
Because that's what some of the creators have told us, is that they got to know each other working on FACPOV and doing the press tour for it.
Yep.
And like, without that, it doesn't happen. Like, just because of the personal connections involved.
Right.
And then I love that they have a community of writers that have like their own group chats. Like,
like I remember tweeting at them, and I think it was Soul who responded with, "Oh no, we totally have a meme chat." I was like, yes, that's all I needed in life. Also, welcome Mondo and Gina. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. And each of them brings in something so different, because like Justina and Claudia are in their wheelhouse, right? Like, Justina's written middle grade novels. But like Spark of Resistance has Rey in it, so it has a Jedi in it. But to go from that to writing like super formal, organized Jedi Order is something a little bit different. And then she had written Lando's Luck. And then Claudia, I mean, she's gotten to write Jedi before, so I'm excited to see where they go there. But they're kind of like hanging out there. But then like Older has written, I'm pretty sure has written comics before. He might have done some Star Wars comics, but to like have a comic line, like I would have expected him to be writing one of the books. And Soul has done so many Marvel series, but he's writing a novel. And Kevin has done like middle grade stuff, Star Wars Adventures, but like now he gets the Marvel line. And so it's really interesting too, in like who has written Force stuff before and who hasn't, and who's like getting to try it. I'm really curious to see how this goes out. I'm really excited to get plot descriptions for this stuff when we eventually get it. I was thinking this morning, that like it's so exciting to finally know what Project Luminous is and we can ask these authors stuff, but they probably still can't tell us like any more than they already could. Other than
Right.
it's just like,
Now,
what
now
is
they can
the
just tell us the
disaster?
name of the thing.
Yeah, right. What is the disaster? Tell me.
I mean, so let's talk a little bit more about like the story specifics that we know, because we know again it's a high fantasy kind of thing that
Yeah.
casts, the Jedi in their prime is
Yep.
like knights.
Yep.
But we also know that it's going to be something that deals with what the Jedi fear most, and we
Yeah.
don't know exactly what that means. And we know that at the beginning of the Soul novel, there's going to be something that they kept referring to as the Great
The
Disaster,
Great Disaster.
which will lead us into a confrontation between the Jedi and space Vikings
Yep.
called the Nile.
The Nile. I wonder if that
So,
big fancy station on the cover is gonna get wrecked.
oh, maybe so.
Because
It was.
somebody on Twitter pointed out that the spires look like Jedi Temple spires.
Mm-hmm.
So like, they're floating. There's floating space temple satellite could get wrecked.
Well, and it was a reference. Our pal Marv, if you haven't seen like collated all the references to it.
Sorry, I heard something. I couldn't tell if it was me. Yes, Marv.
All the things that are references. I was like, yeah, Marv, right? Like you know him better than I do.
I haven't found him yet, but I know Marv.
No, it is his birthday though, so make sure you tell him.
Make sure if you find Marv, you tell him happy birthday.
But like one of the references is Finn in one of the comics makes a reference to the fact.
I don't think it's Finn because I think it's the main Star Wars line. I think he just has Finn's haircut.
Okay, I didn't know what comic it was. It looked like Finn, but
he's got like Finn's haircut and Finn's jacket, but it's not Finn. It confuses me every time.
Perfect. But there is a non-Finn character then that makes reference to like that station being a beacon of hope, and so I mean, but I just think you got a big space station, like it's not going to go well, right? Like,
right.
When has that ever gone well for Star Wars?
Right. Yeah. No. I don't know a station that has ever made it. But no, I'm excited to see what that could mean. And like that's gonna be, I think if there's anything I'm kind of concerned about with the series, which there really isn't, it's how they're going to handle this supposed great disaster. Because this isn't a fault necessarily of like Del Rey Publishing, but I think if there's been a weakness in Disney era Star Wars, it's been marketing. And certainly the marketing around High Republic and when it was going to get released has been confusing, shall we say.
Yeah.
My worry is that they'll try to keep whatever this disaster is so secret that they can't actually market what any of this is about until Soul's book is out.
Mm-hmm.
And that will lead to subsequent everything after Soul's stuff not getting the marketing it should because they can't talk about it. Versus like, if you compare this to the media campaign for SWOTOR, the Old Republic, the MMO, when that came out, like there's lead-in books to that are really good. And there's comics that tie in, but there's the game also. But like the big event in that game is the sacking of Coruscant, and that was in the cinematic trailer for the game. Like you got to experience the sacking of Coruscant in the Deceived trailer, which is, that Deceived trailer is still like some of the best Star Wars I've ever watched. But that was the event, and like everything about the game was about that. And then one of the lead-in comics was about like what the Jedi were doing before the sacking of Coruscant. And like that's what this great disaster feels like to me, not knowing what it is.
Right.
And right now we might just not know what it is because it doesn't come out till August and they don't want to tell us. But my worry is like if we don't know anything at all until Soul's book, that it will make marketing everything after Soul's book impossible.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that will sort of temper that a little bit is because comic issues solicitations come out way in advance.
Yeah, that's true.
For comics that will be released by the end of August, those solicits will probably come out in like April or May.
Right.
So we're gonna have some type of basic description, and sometimes solicitations tell you exactly what happens in an issue, and sometimes they're really vague and
vague
intentionally. Right. But so we may have more information than we want.
Right.
Also.
That's true. Well, and I think looking at the date, was Soul's novel the 25th? of
of August.
August.
Yeah.
So Celebration starts 2 days after, and there's no way there won't be a High Republic panel at Celebration. Like they
I
would
mean,
be
that's one of the things that the StarWars.com article says is that a lot of this is going to debut at
celebrate.
Anaheim.
Yeah, which would make
So
sense, and that's a perfect time to, especially when you don't have a movie. That's a perfect time to showcase what this can be when all eyes are going to be on Star Wars. And if it's 2 days after the book, they can go, sorry, spoilers. It's been 2 days. You took a day off work, right? And just binged the audiobook like everybody else on Twitter. We'll just spoil it for you. Not that I'm ever bitter that that's ever happened to me.
well, that's what you can do the next if you take a plane to Anaheim, you can soothe yourself
with
with audiobooks.
with I could with the first book, The Light of the Jedi.
But I'm sure there'll be convention exclusive stuff
Covers.
for
Yeah, that's my kind of
all
thing.
this
Like,
too.
I don't think I want to buy these ahead of time because I think I want to get the convention exclusive covers.
Although I really like some of the covers of these novels.
No, they're good.
Um,
Mondo says theory. Space Vikings don't have spaceships, and they travel around riding purgles, hence the masks. I like the masks idea, but also they're pretty scantily clad, so I don't know. Like maybe they can breathe in space, but their skin would still freeze off, unless they have spacesuits. But I am intrigued though with this idea of like there's something with them in hyperspace because that's some of the hinting has been like they use hyperspace in a different way, and it could be Purgo. I'm just saying that they weren't all wearing full shirts. Will they stream the convention on YouTube? I don't know, but they have at every convention for the last couple of years. Not all, if it's like in the past, not all panels will be streamed, but the big ones will be. Probably the High Republic one will be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who go get permission to record panels and upload them later.
Yeah. I mean, and like one of the things they said last night was that they're going to let, publishing be the main storytelling, venue for a while.
Yeah.
And so like I would imagine that a lot of the content at Celebrate, I mean, it's going to be Mandalorian, right? And
well, we should finally get Cassian and Kenobi content or something.
Right, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have another announcement of another animated series by August.
Oh, for sure.
Like whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But like I think this is going to be a lot of the content is going to be High Republic. Mm-hmm. Which works. I like that they have a theme that they can promote.
Well, and I like it forward too, because I was seeing one of my mutuals on Twitter was talking about how she thought that this wouldn't do a lot for bringing in new viewers, or I should say anyway. But like, it wasn't like how this is going to bring in, like, are people going to be interested or not? And I feel like maybe, like, I don't think the books or comics have ever been where you really get new fans from, unless it's middle grade novels or like kids comics, because that's just how you're introducing kids to Star Wars. I don't know very many people. Like, I've never met somebody who's like, well, I read the Thrawn trilogy and then I thought I'd give the Star Wars movies a try. Like, I've never met that. If that person exists, I would love to know about it, but I've never met that person. So I don't think any of this is ever to like get in new fans. But I think this is the type of thing where if you are already a fan and you've already like seen the movies and you have Disney Plus, so you tried The Mandalorian and you thought that was neat, you're like, maybe I should give the books a shot. Doing something like this where it's its whole own space, and you don't have to read anything because nothing has come before it. So, even if it's building on stuff we've seen in other books, it's got to exist in its own space because it's happening first. Right. And I think I think it's going to be a good vehicle to take people from just screen fans to also becoming book and comic fans.
Right. I mean, well, and for so long, like the way any of us got into Star Wars was, we saw it on cable or, our parents who grew up with it, got us into it, because until the prequel trilogy, like none of it was there.
Yeah.
And so like we got into those books because that's what we had, and I think if this is what we have of Star Wars, for at least the next year or so, then I think this will be where a lot of those fans go. And I like as much as I love the new Jedi Order. Like one of the bad things about Legends canon post Return of the Jedi is it was so interconnected that you
Yep.
had to have a lot of, like, if you didn't know what happened on Centerpoint Station, then you miss out on some of the context of those early NJO books. And
Right.
if you didn't have some idea of what the Black Fleet crisis was,
Right.
then you didn't understand this plot point here and there.
Yep.
And the fact that this is a completely different setting
Mhm.
lets us take the themes and the force and spaceships and
Yep.
hyperspace and not have to have, I don't want to say the baggage because that makes it sound bad, but without needing all of the references. And that way, if you get, you know, the ancestor of General Veers or something, like, it's cool, but you don't need to know, you know, the history of General Veers in order to understand it. You know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And welcome, Snoke's Legs. I'm feeling much the same as you. Um, I'm excited to, because like what you're saying, it's always that line you have to walk when you have a big expanded universe of you want to reward the fans that have read everything, but you don't want to alienate anybody who hasn't. And that was kind of the big debate with Resistance Reborn, which we both enjoyed. But like, and I loved. Unfortunately, the stream we did on Resistance Reborn was cursed with several technical issues and will never see the light of day. But we both enjoyed the book. And for those of you who weren't there for the one time only showing of that stream, um, but like there were definitely parts where I knew what was being referenced and had read it myself, and like those were the more emotionally impactful. But Rebecca Roanhorse did an amazing job of like, okay, well, if you didn't read this, let me, like, you know, she balanced the explaining well with the reading, even though I mean sometimes I was like, okay, I'll have to take your word for it. Um but like that would be the issue as something builds on each other. But like you're saying, going this far back, there's a necessity to explain what's going on because it's going to be new to everybody. And I think that
Right.
makes it a, and I think the same thing happened with KOTOR. And I think that's part of why KOTOR was such a popular thing in Legends, because you had the rich history of the post Return of the Jedi legends. And then by the time KOTOR came around and got KOTOR 2, Tales of the Jedi was already out at that point, but there was really, you didn't really have to read anything else. And I think it's like that second wave of Legends canon fan that really latched on to KOTOR. And I could see this
Right.
kind of post sequel trilogy Star Wars fan latching on to High Republic.
Right. I mean, we're still only what, like, right around 5 years from, like,
Oh yeah,
the canon reset, so it's not as if
yep,
there's,
a
you know, just a
ton.
ton of stuff anyway. But one of the things I like about this too is because, I mean, we kind of knew it was going to be multimedia, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to end up being more multimedia than even what's been announced
Yep, I
so
agree.
far. Um, but I like that they are intentionally trying to appeal to different demographics
Yep,
and different age groups.
which is something
Um,
Legends didn't do in the same way at all.
it didn't, and I think that's something that canon has done so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people, like, look at that with a certain amount of disdain,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially for some of the young adult novels are like, oh, I'm never going to read this because it's meant for children.
Right.
And with few exceptions, I think those things have not just been things that were aimed
Oh yeah.
at children. Like, I've been, like, some of those have been some of my favorite books.
Yeah.
You know, like Leia, Princess of Alderaan is one of my favorites, and Lost Stars is one of my. I mean, they're both written by Claudia Gray, so that tells you something there too.
That helps.
But
But even then, with the show, I mean, you and I were both Adventures in Wild Space fans.
yeah, sure.
Justine Ireland did Lando's Luck with Flight of the Falcon, which was phenomenal. So like, I and like I'm guilty certainly of thinking, oh, this is kind of made for kids, so like it's not going to be as critical, and I don't need to read it. But I started picking up Star Wars middle grade stuff in current canon just because I was curious and it sounded interesting, and I knew it was going to be a quick read, and I was like, oh, this is good. Like
Yeah.
the difference is they don't use $10 words, and you know maybe there's a little bit less impaling or something. But they're still Star Wars stories, and new canon has been doing that so well. Legends did
And
have,
yeah.
yes, Legends did have middle grade books. Some of my favorite middle grade books are the Jedi Apprentice series by Jude Watson, which I also know Claudia Gray is a big fan of, but they never tied into bigger series like they have done in canon. Where if you look at like Journey to the Force Awakens, Journey to the Last Jedi, Journey to Rise of Skywalker, they all had middle grade tie-ins. And once they got Star Wars Adventures with IDW, that stuff tied into Flight of the Falcon and tied into the films. And so there's a difference between, yeah, we made Galaxy of Fear for kids who wanted Goosebumps, but Star Wars. But like, it was never critical to anything else in canon. And it never tied into anything else, where they've done kidlit for Star Wars that has felt very relevant to what's going on. Right. Welcome, Coach Chris.
Well, and if I had to guess, I would say that even though I think all of these stories are going to be interconnected, I don't think you're necessarily going to have to consume everything in order to understand it either. Like I think the young adult, like I think a lot of the characters are going to be responding to the same events, but I don't think like it's I don't anticipate that, you know, the Light of the Jedi is going to be part 1 and
right.
you know, A Test of Courage is going to be part 2. Like I don't think it's going to be that type of crossover.
Right. I think they specifically describe they wanted to bring in 5 different authors who all look at Star Wars in 5 different ways, to have a story for every person. And maybe that's propaganda or whatever, but I'm inclined to see it that way. You know, I think that we're going to get a very different kind of story. And there's always going to be that pressure of, especially for somebody like, you know, if you're running the Star Wars channel, there's always going to be that pressure to like, I have to read all of it. But like, read what you want, and if you don't like something, you don't have to read it. Like, personally, I'm really excited for Daniel Jose Older to write Star Wars Adventure Comics, especially because I'm pretty sure he's the one that put dinosaurs on the whiteboard. But but like, if you don't read it, then don't read it. Like, if it's not your jam, it's not your jam. I don't really understand the people who feel like they need to declare that it's not their jam to the world, because no one is keeping tabs on who's reading all 5 things. It's fine. Just read the Wikipedia summary, or like Star Wars Newsnet does a lot of really good reviews if you don't want to read it yourself. Like, it's fine. But I think they're doing this where it's like, okay, we're gonna have that story that's gonna be more from the everyday person's perspective. We'll have the story that's from the Jedi's perspective. We'll have, you know, I think that while it's not going to be a 5-part love story, I would be surprised if there were no love stories told somewhere, especially with Claudia Gray writing a young adult novel. So, you know, I think it's going to be one of those things where if you really do read everything, you'll be benefited from it. Like, you'll get that interconnectedness. But if you miss something, if it's not your thing, like, they're just trying to make something that appeals to as many people as possible. You know.
I mean, this is also not going to be the only Star Wars we get.
Right.
Because we know there's still 2 more Alphabet Squadron books to come. And we've got a whole new Thrawn series that's starting. And there's still ongoing...
Poe book is coming also in August.
Right. And we've still got the ongoing Star Wars series. And like the new Vader series. And like all of that's still... You know, not the other Vader series.
That Vader series. Yeah.
Yes. The new Vader series. And when that one's you know, done, we'll get the new Vader series.
The ultra new high Vader series.
Ultimate Darth Vader. But like if none of this is for you, like it's not like this is the only. I mean, like, and there's still going to be the Mandalorian, and they just put season 2 of Resistance on Disney Plus,
and that, you know, EA announced that they're going to at least make a spiritual successor, if not sequel, to Jedi Fallen Order. Like,
I mean, we still got 3 months of Clone Wars, so like there's still a whole bunch of stuff going on in Star Wars. But I'm so excited that they're doing something big. I'm excited that they're taking risks, and maybe it doesn't all go the way I want it to, and maybe some of it, you know, doesn't end up being the best thing I've ever read. But I'm excited that we're not afraid to say we don't want Star Wars to die. You know, that we want to say, hey, they're. I mean, because like I remember on our message boards, which message boards as an internet thing, you know, went away
a long time ago.
But like I remember starting a thread there, like at some point, is all of this just going to be done?
Right.
Like, like, are we just going to say, all right, well, that was Star Wars, folks, pack it
Well,
up?
we were talking about this on our hype stream for Clone Wars, that it's
Yeah.
such a different feeling now at the end of Rise of Skywalker than the last time the Skywalker Saga ended with Revenge of the Sith, where it was like, what are they gonna do? And like, yeah, there were books and comics, but there wasn't like a big. I mean, I guess they had Fate of the Jedi might have been out after. It would have Fate of the Jedi would have had to, because it connected to Clone Wars. But anyway, like they still had like their bigger book series, but it felt different to me than what they're trying to do now. And maybe that's just because of social media in general. But like the idea that Star Wars is going to be around, and I think there's also this kind of weird, like, people don't think it through when they say things logic, where everyone's like, yeah, we want a diversity of stories, and like Star Wars can be more than just the Skywalkers. We want to see different things. But then when the different things aren't their thing, they're like, what's Star Wars doing? I'm upset.
I want very different things, but I want it to be about Han Solo and Leia and Rey.
I want what I'm comfortable with, but different. Like, yep. And so it's just like, you can't have diversity of stories and then have all of the different stories appeal to everyone. Like, that's just not gonna work. So we're probably gonna get stuff where I'm like, that book was fine. I read it. I don't regret reading it. I might not ever read it again. But then there's gonna be other stuff where I'm gonna be like, this is my new favorite. And that's okay. Like, that's the point of telling different kinds of stories.
I mean, and if nothing else, like, we know Yoda is still going to be involved in some of this at some point, because he's 900 years old, so 200 years ago, like, still puts him like solidly in middle age at the very least.
I was gonna say, I've had it explained to me on Twitter several times today that Baby Yoda is 50 years old, which I was unaware of. As a Yoda fanatic, I did not understand that very common knowledge about Baby Yoda. And so I was really thankful that several people explained that to me. So that therefore means that 700-year-old Yoda is a young adult. It's going to be a long couple of months for me, guys. I apologize in advance.
But I just like that. I mean, any possibility for more Yoda anything is good for me, because I know you have your theory that all Star Wars is really about Yoda.
It is.
Even
it really is.
Yoda is not in.
It's still about Yoda.
Right.
It's the expanded Yoda
I
universe.
Like that Yoda is an easy way, though, to say, hey, here's like literally the same character that like in a different setting.
Yeah. I would put money actually on Charles Soule involving Yaddle in some way. I feel like I remember him being a Yaddle freak, and I feel like he could do that. But you also have Maz. Like, you have a couple of long-lived characters who could pop up and do things.
Right. Well, and Maz's droid, that looks like the droid on the cover of the Justina Island novel.
Yep.
So like there's like definite things that could be connections here.
Well, and somebody spotted, I can't remember the name of the droid, but the droid that's voiced by David Tennant in the Younglings arc was in some of the concept art, I think, which would make sense because he supposedly has the story of when Yoda made his lightsaber, so
right.
I don't know. I think we could be in for some really cool connections there. What if Yoda is older than the Jedi Order?
There you go.
Just say it, because everything's about Yoda.
So the Jedi Order is young adult.
Yes, the Jedi Order as a whole is a young adult. I think that's true. Actually, no. In all seriousness, I think it's possible we could see Yoda's. I don't think Yoda's going to be a main character in this. I think they really do want to bring in their new characters. But he's going to be alive and a Jedi, so he's going to be there. I think it would be cool to see him become the Grand Master over the course of the story.
That would be cool. I mean, maybe even as a result of like what happens,
whatever the disaster is. He's like he's the emergency Grand Jedi Master.
I want to spend some time speculating about what the Grand Disaster is.
Yeah.
But before we run out of time, why don't we go ahead and list
Okay.
like the things that we know are confirmed, which you can find these in articles. But so we
Yeah.
have Light of the Jedi. It's
Yep.
a Del Rey novel by Charles Soule.
Yep.
That's going to be the first thing, and I imagine that the Marvel High Republic series by Kevin Scott will probably debut around the same time.
Yeah.
And then we also have High Republic Adventures
Yep. Which is the
by
IDW.
Daniel Jose Older. Yeah, it's the IDW series. And then we've got Into the Dark by Claudia Gray
Mm-hmm.
and A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, which are both Disney Lucasfilm Press
Yep.
young adult novels.
So really quick, so there's Sky Nobi in the chat. Everybody thank him for his very nice background that
yes,
he made us.
thank you, Sky Nobi. But so that's all the stuff that we know is confirmed by the 5 people that we know are involved.
Yep.
And again, they were talking about this as just phase 1. So.
Yep. And whether the next phase is different authors, like same 5 plus, or just who knows? Maybe they decide it by casting lots. I don't know. And then like other things, but I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
And both of the comic series were announced as ongoings too, and not miniseries. So I'm imagining that they'll go on, for at least a year or so.
For sure. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they connect because they all seem to have at least different people on the cover. So it seems like they're all introducing different characters to kind of tell their own story. What I kind of wonder is, we know this is taking place 200 years before the movies. We know this is taking place as a result of the Great Disaster, the Grand Disaster, the Extraordinary Disaster, whatever it's called.
I think it's the Great Disaster.
The Great Disaster.
Disaster.
I can't ever remember what anything is called. So it's, there's the disaster. But I wonder if there's going to be like a time jump and like, or because I keep going back to the Old Republic stuff, and like we had the sacking of Coruscant, but like some of the stuff even took place before that. So like, are we going to start with the Great Disaster, but then like backtrack, or will Into the Dark, which Justine is this, the greatest test?
The Test of Courage.
The Test of Courage. I can't remember what anything's called, guys. And then Light of the Jedi. Like maybe they'll all tell the same story, but from a different perspective. But we're getting it in Charles Soule's because his is first. So I think there's some room there for some stuff.
I think so too. So in our last few minutes, like, what are some wild ideas about what the great, grand, awesome
disaster,
powerful disaster?
I think
the Jedi cafeteria runs out of Jello.
Yes, I think that's definitely possible. I think that would be a huge problem for me. I eat Jello several times a week at work. I think there could be a Hollow movie that's really popular, but then some of the Jedi hate it and some of the Jedi love it, and they all stop talking to each other. and then the Republic starts to descend into madness because the Jedi won't help each other anymore because they're too busy fighting about the Hollow movie. I think that's a possibility.
It could be that they reconnect with some of their friends from high school, which are just involved in various multi-level marketing stuff now, and the great disaster is the fact that they signed up for.
I think going off of how this call is going so far, the great disaster could be the Wi-Fi on the web call could break apart.
Yeah, probably. That would probably be a thing too.
It's like instead of Wi-Fi, it's hyperspace just breaks and you can't use hyperspace anymore. You can't get anywhere. Let's see, what else could happen? The Phantom Menace is about like taxation and trade routes. So like maybe currency falls apart and the galactic stock market crashes.
Oh yeah, sure.
Will Batu hello Breck something? Will Batu figure into this? I remember Batu being a big destination around the time. It's definitely possible. And hey, a father and son, welcome. Communications disruption can mean only one thing. That means Django and I have been on a call for an hour and 15 minutes because every time we talk for an hour and 15 minutes, his side of the phone call drops.
Yep.
Without fail. It's a weird Discord quirk. It could mean invasion, though. I mean, that's presumably what the Space Vikings are going to be. And, like, they're conveniently named, like, after nihilism. So, like, are the... Like, I guess to get serious for a second, I think that it could be something like that. Because in theory, we're not going to see the Sith. Because the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Or if we see the Sith, we at least won't know. Or at least we'll know, but the Jedi won't know it's the Sith. So I wouldn't rule out not seeing the Sith, or I wouldn't rule out seeing the Sith, but I don't think it's going to be a major conflict. But like, I don't know, are these Space Vikings going to have an on-the-nose kind of name, where they're just like coming in to burn the galaxy?
I mean, I think they're going to be named after nihilism, but then be hippies. It's all going to be peace and love.
They're going to be like nihilist Arby's.
One of the best Twitter accounts there is.
Skynobi wants to see Jeddah and Lothal in the days of the High Republic, which would be awesome. And yes, we have seen the Loth Wolf. I'm very distracted by the person behind the Loth Wolf, though, with a really cool lightsaber. But we could see Lothal. I mean, there's a Jedi temple there.
So?
And I know Cavan, at least, is a big Rebels fan. So, you never know. But, yeah, no, I guess presumably these Vikings come in and they have their line, right? Like, you can't take it with you, but we can take it from you, which is just such a great... It's like, it's a really corny line, but, like, really corny in the right way, if that makes sense. And, I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something for Space Vikings to threaten the Jedi Order at their peak. Are you there? He's there.
I think I'm here. Am I here?
There you are. You're back.
But I also think that, you know, it connects to that idea of what the Jedi are afraid of too.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm curious what that means.
And maybe, you know, we see all these grand pictures, but maybe the Jedi Order is actually smaller, and maybe they just don't have the numbers. You know, are the Jedi already afraid of losing control? Are the Jedi already afraid of not being able to defend the Republic? Is that a fear they gain? Because, yeah, what would a Jedi... Because to me, when you ask me what a Jedi would fear most, I'm used to, like, all the cave sequences we get in Star Wars films. And I'm used to, like, Jedi really fear something about themselves the most. Or they have to overcome a personal struggle. So then to say that, like, what is that going to mean with these Space Vikings is very intriguing to me.
I agree.
What if the Great Disaster is on Jeddah? It could be. I mean, we could see what wrecks Jeddah, for sure. So, I don't know. It's one of those things where right now it's so wide open. There's so much to speculate on, but because there's so much, there's also not a lot. Because like we don't have that much to go on. But I'm just pumped. Like I really want this to be something where it shows us how we get the Jedi Order that we get in the prequel trilogy.
I think so too. I think it'd be a cool idea, like you said, if at the end of this, you know, Yoda becomes Grand Master,
right,
and like reforms the Order himself,
right,
as a result of whatever happens.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I think there's a part of me too, because one of the things on that whiteboard is that they want like a definitive ending. So you know, after however many phases, but I gotta wonder like. At the end of the day, even though this is supposed to be high fantasy and fun, like if we know where the Jedi Order is going in 200 years, whatever the ending to this thing is going to be bittersweet. because we know, even if it's not necessarily foreshadowing like Darth Vader and Palpatine and the destruction, like it's foreshadowing the Jedi becoming complacent. Like wherever the Jedi end in this story, they're going to be going in the wrong direction.
Right.
Do we know if the Knights of Ren prior to Ben Solo's involvement existed prior to the guy they call Ren from the Charles Soule comic? Seems like High Republic authors banking hard on the idea of the Knights' possible connection. I think if I've read, I'm up to date on the Soule comics, but I'm not an expert on them. But I feel like there's the legend of the Knights of Ren, and then there's like it's because we see the Ren guy like in the flashback way at the beginning, but then it's like some confusion as to whether or not confusion, but it's some mystery as to like how connected they are. I think it's a good question. I think it is a possible connection. I think we're maybe not supposed to know fully yet, other than there is that flashback at the very, very beginning of the first issue of Knights of Ren that I remember correctly takes place a long time before the films.
Right. I also think it would be cool if we get to see, whatever happens on that one planet in the Myths and Fables.
Oh yeah.
Story where you get like the earlier story and then the later story.
Yep.
Like if that's thematically connected, I think that would be a cool
connection. Too. Soul Pirate, I want to know why they had the giant statues of the Jedi to begin with. Doesn't seem very humble. Well, because it was a religious mecca. I think it was to worship. I think it was non-Jedi building them. Like I don't think the Jedi have a temple on Jedha. I think it was like the Guardians of the Whills, but I don't remember because it's been a long time since I've read the Rogue One lead-in. Real quick before we go, there's some people who've been wondering how much they're going to change Legends and maybe make Palpatine much older. So like we could even get young Palpatine, which I personally like because that would resolve the thing that I hate the most about Plagueis. And like just to spite the thing that I hate the most about Plagueis, I would really love that. But otherwise, I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, as long as we get more in-canon references to the name Sheev, I'm happy.
So I'm more okay with that now that there's more than one Palpatine. I mostly just hated it that he had a first name at all. But yeah, I don't think that's like I don't think they would. I don't know, how do I put this? After Rise of Skywalker, I wondered if Palpatine wasn't going to be older if they go off this idea that he's been like possessing people. I think it's plausible that he could be alive as far back as then because that would like let him have had the plan for the prequel trilogy. I don't think he's going to be a primary antagonist or a primary character in High Republic. I think if anything, like the end of the series, we could see Yoda becoming the permanent Grand Jedi Master and like the beginning of Palpatine. And like, even though it has a definitive ending, it also has a cliffhanger for where we know it goes in the movies. Like, that would be really cool to me. And just kind of like, especially because you have that cross-cutting in Revenge of the Sith between Yoda and Palpatine, to have the cross-cutting between like Yoda and Palpatine. But this is all based off of me assuming that the end of the High Republic is going to be about Yoda, as it should be. Because everything's about Yoda.
Just talk to Kevin about it.
He's just gonna get so many.
Or rather, don't, because when you suggest ideas, that means they like can't do it.
I'll just be like, Kevin, never write Yoda. Oh no, Terry left. It's been an hour and 15 minutes, and his call drops. He will be back in like 3 seconds. We were playing with fire, but right now I'm just awkwardly sitting in the middle of the screen. There he is.
Hi.
It was an hour and 15 minutes.
Yay!
That's why we should never start the call.
We made it.
We should never prep. We should just only start the call right before the stream. Do we know when all the people slaughtered at Malachor? That is a great question that I don't know the answer to. That I'm sure is on Wikipedia. But no, I don't know if we know when the people at Malachor were slaughtered on that planet. But that would be a wonderful thing to tie in. And again, I know at least Kevin is a fan of Rebels because I memorize everything Kevin has ever tweeted. Just not that sounds creepy or anything.
but we still have a long way to go. So
We
like
do.
I'm excited with what's been announced, but there's still so much we don't know.
Yep.
So we'll be talking a lot more about this
as we know more.
and especially when August rolls around.
Definitely. So we'll have plenty, and definitely from the panel for the High Republic. So be good. It's not like I'm a super fan of. He can never. I would say he can never know how much of a super fan I am, but he's actually quite aware. So it's fine.
I mean, you did meet him in person.
I did meet him in person, and he didn't run away. So that was a good sign. He wasn't like, you. Cabin is a very nice person. I did meet Claudia too, but she will not remember me. That's not shade on her. She met like 9,000 people, so she would not remember me. And I've not met the other three, but I'm sure they're all wonderful people. But that's I think that's what I have at the moment. Like, I can't really say if there's one I'm more. I mean, other than I've just said my obvious bias towards Kevin, and I love anything Claudia writes. But like, I can't say that I have a bias towards one story or another because I don't know what they're going to be about. And the cover art for all 5 of them is amazing. And I like I really like the chick on the cover of Justina's book, the green chick. Probably because she's green. If your character's green, I'm more inclined to be excited for your character. I can't wait to get to know Roy. I tried to say it with my accent.
Be like Han and Solo.
The Great Battle of Pretend. That's one of my all-time favorite Star Wars lines. The Great Battle of Pretend. Make Solo 2 happen. But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. We should be doing if my life goes according to plan, we'll be doing a KOTOR 2 live stream. We're almost off Paragus.
Yay!
And that'll be noon Eastern on Thursday-ish. And for those of you who don't know what that is in your time zone, it is 10 after 5 p.m. So like 5 hours earlier than right now, but on Thursday.
You mean you're not going to do it at 7 p.m. Pacific time?
No, because I'm asleep. How's Crystal Star going? So I'm stuck on chapter 2 because it's horrible. It's literally terrible. That's how it's going.
I won't throw too much shade because I'm only on like chapter 5, but we were gonna try to finish it by the end of the month, but that's like 3 days from now. So.
And it's horrible, and it's literally horrible. I've heard that apparently it gets a little bit better in like 3 or 4, but like
I haven't gotten there yet, so
there you go. But yeah, we'll get there. We are in process of working it. We have a good idea for how we're going to cover it, so I'm sure you will enjoy it.
Yeah.
But like, I'm halfway through chapter 2 because it was a lot. It was a lot emotionally.
And we're getting pretty close to 1,100 subscribers. So if you're here and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and just, as they say, smash that button and hit that bell, and you'll get notified whenever we go live.
Yep.
So if you're here too, go ahead and make sure you like the stream. You might as well. You're already here.
I would appreciate it. And thank you guys for sticking through with our weird Discord calls. One of these days we'll solve the Discord problem. But yeah, this has been great. And we will talk to you guys. Oh, and then of course Friday we'll have a Clone Wars review. But
yep.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay, our mics are off. I did record it. Not that it particularly matters.